Hey guys, back on the road again today because we got a problem with the little Duke 390. I know, can you believe it? It's a fairly common problem with this model, and it is the fact that the speedo comes and goes while you're riding along. So we'll go for a bit of a cruise, give you a demo, see what you reckon. Now I was thinking that it was one of the pickups. So there's two pickups, there's one down here, there's another one around the back here, and I was thinking maybe one of these got a broken wire, or the pickup's not close enough to the perforated plate here. These are just little Hall effect sensors, but if that was the case, the ABS light would be coming on, I'm pretty sure. So the ABS light never comes on when you're riding, which is making me think, because the front speed sensor and the rear speed sensor feed into the ABS system, and then from the ABS system there's a signal or a set of pulses that goes to the speedo. So maybe somewhere between this there and the speedo, or maybe I have read on some chat rooms that it's the speedo itself that's the problem, and they reckon if it's a speedo you got to chuck it out. And I don't know, it's like $600-700 for a whole new cluster. It's just not worth it. I only paid $500 for the bike. So we'll go for a ride, we'll show you what's going on, and then we'll go back and pull it apart, see if we can work out what's going on with it. Because this is my daughter's bike, and of course when the speedo's not working, she's only on her L's, she's looking down to see what speed she's doing, and there's no speedo, or it's saying 0. Then she's looking up, she's looking back down, and she's staring at the speedo way too long, waiting for the speed to come back. It's a pretty dangerous way to ride. Let's kick this thing in the guts and get cruising. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Let's ride, eh? Alright, so there you go, that's the problem. The old speedo there, playing up a bit. Let's go see what we can fix. Rightio, this is where we're at. That's the connector for the ECU. Up in there is the ABS controller, and the main connector is where my finger is there, right in the darkness. It actually feels kind of wobbly, but there's many wires going in and out of there, so I'm hoping that one of these is going to go and be talking to the dash. And maybe not going through the ECU, but probably will as well, which is going to make it even more complicated. I might see if I can dig a wiring diagram off the net somewhere. I might get lucky. There's one connector going into the speedo instrument cluster, and there's another one there. So could be any of these connectors here, could be a broken wire or a intermittent wire. We don't know yet. We're going to start trying to trace it all out, I guess. Well, lucky, I found a wiring diagram for the ABS system and where it hooks to the speedo. So I've just done a quick little mud map, but I'll put a link to this website anyway if you ever need to have a look yourself. Lucky. This is my train of thought. We've got the ABS module connector here, and we know that the Hall effect sensors, front and rear, report directly into this module. Then there's two wires that come from this module up into the dash here. Now I'm not sure whether it's just the front wheel that it uses for a speed sensor or just the rear. So I'm going to spin the front wheel and see whether it gives us a speed, and then I'll spin the back wheel and see if it gives us a speed. Then we'll know which sensor or which line to eliminate from our problem. Simulated speed activator. Okay, front wheel drives speedo. I can't see it from back here, so you're going to have to miss out on this next bit. Alright, so we now know that it's only the front wheel that's sending a signal to the speedo, so we can eliminate any of the rear wheel. We can eliminate the fact that there's a problem from the sensors to the ABS, because the ABS does not throw a fault code up when you're riding along, and when it goes blank, the ABS light doesn't come on. So if we look at my little bit of a schematic here, you got your front sensor, just goes into the ABS module. Then there's two wires that come out of the ABS module into the speedo. There's the colors. So I'm going to just have a bit of a look at the plugs, have a look at the connections, see if there's any possible way that could be a problem there. And then my next thinking is to hook the oscilloscope up and have a look at the output here, see what the signal looks like. Then once I've got the oscilloscope signal, I can use my sine wave generator to inject the signal into the speedo without having to spin the front wheel, and I can fiddle with these wires and fiddle with the speedo and see if I can make it fault. Well, I'll see how we go demonstrating this, but I've got the oscilloscope hooked up here, and I've got these two very fine wires tapped into, I've got these two little tiny wires pushed into the plug here, which comes from the front Hall effect sensor. So it's going to be a bit hard to show this, but I'll spin the front wheel up, the ignition's on. Now while I'm spinning the front wheel up, I'm going to have to hit auto scan. It might be in the right spot, I'm just taking a guess. 2 volts per division. We'll see how we go. Hey, we got a signal. So what we've got, 5 volts per division, so we're looking at, what are we looking at, around, yeah, it's about a 5 volt signal, maybe 6 volts. And it looks like 214 hertz. So we can emulate that signal on here and inject it back into the system, and then see if we can play with the speedo and get it to fault. Well, we can inject it in. We can inject it in here and see if we get a speed on the speedo. That way we'll know the system's working. Now that we know what our signal looks like, the voltage, the amplitude, the frequency coming from the front Hall effect sensor, we can mimic that. Right, so we can change the sine wave to square wave, which is pretty much what we had. Amplitude will be 6 volts, and frequency will be 200 hertz. Okay, 200 hertz in there. Right, we'll hook it up. And we're going to inject that into where we've tapped into the Hall effect sensor. Don't let them touch. Which is the amplitude. We'll take that right down to 0. Okay. Ignition on. So if we're right, if I'm right, when I bring that amplitude up, we should start to see some speed on the speedo. Nothing yet. Oh! 28 kilometers an hour. Excellent. So yesterday I think we were getting, it was 240 hertz. It was around, what was it, 30 something? Okay, let's go to 240. I think it was nearly 40 Ks. Let's have a look. Oh, yeah, 32. All right, so we can now increase that frequency to increase the speed. I wonder how fast this bike goes. Let's crank it up and see. 130, 180, 109. Oh, the side stands down. That's it, 200 Ks. That's flat out. Speed limited 200, well not speed limited, but that's as high as the speedo goes. Okay. Now the problem is that I haven't noticed it black in or out or do anything funny yet either, has it? So we got that there. That's doing 630 hertz. That equates to 89 kilometers an hour. So all that means is that at 89 Ks, these things are pulsing past, say, my finger here at 620 hertz, sending to the little Hall effect sensor under there. So now we've got that working, and it hasn't blacked out once, of course. What to do? What do we do? What do we do? I'll mount this up and I'll start wiggling some wires and fiddling with some things and see if we can get it to fault. Probably should I'm going to have to hook the battery up to the charger because the light's going to be on the whole time I'm fiddling around with all this stuff. You know it's going to be terrible if I can't get it to fault and then I put it all back together and it goes back to faulting again. How annoying will that be? Okay, so let's disconnect the headlight. It's not going to go flat, is it? Up here for thinking. Am I clutching at straws? Maybe a little bit. I cannot get it to go blank, so now I'm simulating it sitting out in the hot sun for a little while. Maybe there's a component in the dash that's failing when it gets hot. It's nice and toasty. Feels like it's been sitting out in the sun all day. And guess what? No problem. Still no flaming problem. I've tried, changing the speeds around, seeing if maybe the computer will get confused, because I have read that it's a software problem. But as you can see, it's not making any difference. I can change it by a couple of kilometers an hour if I want, to simulate normal road increase and decrease of speed. It's just nothing's making it die. Oh, this is going to be really annoying. If I can't repeat the fault, that means when I put it back together, it's probably going to happen again. Oh well, I'm going to see if I can go in a bit deeper and have a look. Well, I got it apart. Not easy. This rubber cover is bonded to this standoff, which is a good thing because it means I can just silicone that back on. And it's got one of these little wedgie clips that holds it together. I was kind of hoping I might see some water damage or something on here. I'm not seeing anything yet, but I'll go and have a look with the strong microscope, but it's not, sorry, not the magnifying glass, but I can't really show you that. But if I find anything, I'll show you some details. I'm not sure what's under there. I might just drop that LCD screen off. Have a look under there. Is this going to work? I don't know. I'm just holding a little lens there in front of the GoPro. It could be a little better. Honestly, I couldn't really see anything. There's a little tiny crystal there that the legs looked a bit dry solder joint on. Maybe that's a crystal that's associated with timing the pulses from the Hall effect sensor. I don't know. I don't know enough about it. All I can do is look for mechanical failures like a cracked track or something like that. And I couldn't see anything. The most likely candidate would be on the back of the connector here, where it's subject to a bit of flexing. But unfortunately, that's just holding it together on that side, and all the tracks must be under the connector on that side. So yeah, there's very little I can do. I don't have a little hot air gun to pull that out, and I'm not sure that I want to go in that deep anyway because it seemed to be working all right. So I'm going to put it all back together, reassemble it, go for a ride, see what happens. I haven't found anything. That's the most annoying part. Right, I've got a question for you KTM guys. These are the posts for the two buttons, the mode and the set. So what's the third one for? It goes there, and just below the set, in there is actually a squishy bit. Is that like a secret reset button or something? I don't know. I don't have a manual for it. Okay, happy times. Still works. Quick test of the Speedo. Yeah, still working, of course. Well, I've tried everything to make this Speedo go to 0, and in desperation I went back to the web and searched and finally got onto a chat room that was talking about these Duke 390s and the Speedo going to 0. And the general consensus is that it's actually the stator that is dying. So the battery voltage is going low, and for whatever reason, the first thing that comes up before like a warning on the dash is the Speedo goes to 0. So I've set up a bit more test gear. So now I've got the sine wave generator to make the Speedo run. For now, I've taken the battery out. So instead of having the battery in there, I'm powering it directly from my power supply, which means I can start off at 12 volts. All right. So I can start off at 12 volts, and then I can slowly reduce the voltage, and we can see what's going to happen with the Speedo reading. So if this turns out to be right, then may have to get down under here, because this is where the stator is, on this end of the flywheel, the crankshaft, and have a look. But I've already been on the KTM website and priced a new stator for it, and it's pretty close to 400 bucks. So that's going to be a bit of a pain in the ass if that's what the problem is. So let's simulate this fault and see if they're right. Power supply running at 12 volts. Ignition on. Fire up the signal generator. As you can see, once again, I've got control of the speed. Let's make it 84 Ks. Now let's start reducing the voltage and see what happens. All right, I'm down to 11 volts, 10 volts now, 9 volts. That's me doing that, I'm just changing the speed. It's going down again with the voltage, no, it's the wrong way, going down. That's 8 volts. That's 7 volts. I've got the low battery symbol up. Oh, okay. It went away, but then it came back again. Well, that's the first time I've actually got it to make any kind of fault. Right, I think I've got it sussed. I've worked out what's going on. I've put a piece of cardboard down there so you can see the headlight a little bit more easily. Now, if I reduce the voltage, what's going to happen is the voltage is going to drop until the Speedo cuts out. When the Speedo cuts out, the light turns off, the voltage goes back up again, because you're taking most of the load off the generator, off the alternator. When that voltage pops back up again, the Speedo reads again. And this is why, as you're riding along, it's dropping in, dropping out, dropping in, dropping out. So here we go. We're going to simulate it. Right, voltage dropping. There you go, Speedo's gone to 0. Light goes out, Speedo comes back. Voltage picks up again. As the battery charges up a little bit, lights come back on. Voltage drops. Speedo goes out, light goes off, speedo comes back, light comes back on again, and so that cycle is continuing. And the more flat your battery gets, or the more worn out your battery gets, the worse that cycle gets. So it progressively gets worse and worse until either the stator fails or the battery completely dies. Now, there could be a cheap solution to this problem. And that could be as simple as changing the headlight bulb out for a low power LED headlight. Because these quartz halogen bulbs that are in these earlier Dukes, these things are pulling a lot of current. Like I say, these things are probably the most load on the alternator stator. So the light is probably the most load. The second most load's probably the thermo fan. Then you've got the injection system and the fuel pump. But without question, that headlight's probably pulling about 6 amps. So if we swap that out, we might be able to fix this problem without having to change the stator out. Well, maybe we can delay having to change the stator out, perhaps. If we can, we'll change the headlight. But what I want to do first is put it all back together. And just mount a voltmeter up here somewhere so I can monitor the voltage while I'm riding. And maybe I'll put something on the headlight, or maybe just leave these wires out so I can disconnect the headlight, see if it keeps happening. But I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. Bike's back together. These 2 wires here. So what I've got is, I've just got a little hand multimeter. I'm going to mount that on the handlebars here. Hooked up through these wires here and just patched in down into the main power that goes up into the dashboard here so I can monitor the battery voltage while I'm cruising. This is the headlight plug. I'm going to leave that hanging out the side so I can unplug it to see if that makes any difference as well. Now the only other thing, I did fully charge the battery, so it may actually take a while before that battery voltage drops and it starts playing up. We'll see what happens. Let's go. This is the LED headlight that I ended up getting. It's one of the cheaper ones on YouTube. It's not by far the cheapest. I mean, you can get these things for $5 or you can spend $200. I guess ultimately it depends on the power output, but I got a pretty cheap one, so I got 2 of these for, I think it was $45. I'll put a link anyway. This is what it looks like. What you'll notice is that super cheap ones don't have any kind of heatsink on the back of them, and the more expensive ones have actually got a little fan built in here. I don't think the fan ones would fit on the Duke, so that's why I got the one with just the heatsink. What I'll do is I'll plug it in, I'll power it up, and then we'll also compare the current draw and the wattage to the original one. So I'm hoping there's going to be quite a bit of a saving with this one. Let's plug it in, give it a run. Where I got the voltage running at 13.5 volts, which is about where your bike could normally run. It's on low beam, where it's probably going to spend most of its time if you're tootling around the city. And as you can see there, it's drawing 1.3 amps or 18 watts. I think that's what it was rated at. I'm not 100% sure. What I might do is, oh, that's bright, eh? What I might do is a full comparison. So I've ordered one of the really cheap ones as well, and I might just have a play with them and see what the difference is. Yeah, okay, so 1.3 amps for that one. Now let's hook up the big one. And there's the halogen for comparison. I won't blind you. It's running on low beam, 13.5 volts, and it's pulling 4.6 amps. A little bit over, what is it that? 60 watts. And it's smoking because I touched it with my fingers. You should never touch the globe with your fingers. Yeah, so you can see that's a lot more. That's more than double the load on the alternator. So the old LED headlight, we'll put that in. Right, getting the LED bulb in here is a bit of an exercise in wiggle. Leave, you've got your spring clip, make sure you leave one screw in there. Then you've got to kind of wiggle this in, just work out which way around it's got to go first. Okay, that was good. But because it's got this big bulbous bit on the back, you kind of got to feed it in as you lower the clip down in a wiggly sort of way. A little bit of flexing and bending, but you can get it in there. In you go. A little bit of maybe some swearing if required. Okay, that's in. And you probably need, actually no, almost, gotcha. Like I say, it's not the easiest way to do it. You need a screwdriver that's reasonably magnetic as well to hold the screw. This is only difficult because of the big heatsink on the back, right? If it wasn't there, it wouldn't be a pain in the butt. Oh, first attempt. Let's make sure that is locked under there, which it is. Now the other thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is that these do get reasonably warm, whether there'll be enough cooling there. So unfortunately I've had to cut a little bit of a hole in the rubber just to get the plug through, which means some moisture could get in there. This will have to be a bit of a long-term experiment, I think. So I'm going to try running it with the cover on, see whether it's going to cause any problems with heat dissipation in there. Might just whack a little bit of tape around there. Plug that in there. Should be good to go. And then work out how we can get, so I was concerned about the clearance issue between the heatsink and the ignition switch, but that's not going to cause a problem. There's plenty of room there. So we'll button it up. There you go, guys, that's the LED headlight in, running. That's low beam, or was that, oh yeah, that's high beam. Low beam, pretty bright. The look from back here, low beam, high beam. So myself and my daughter are going to go for a ride shortly, but I'm pretty confident that it's going to work fine. I'll get back to you. Okay, so we're back from the ride, and we did about 100 Ks, and the speedo did not blank out once. So, woo-hoo, finally 6 hours fixed. Man, what a mission that was. So what I'm thinking is, when I ordered these LED light bulbs, they come in a 2-pack, and obviously I only need one. So if you want this one, if you've got a Duke 390 and you're having problems with the speedo going to 0 every now and then, leave a comment in the comment section saying, I need that bulb, something like that. And whoever's first, I'll get in contact with you, and we'll exchange emails, and I'll post this to you. It's not really a giveaway because it's only maybe worth 20 bucks, but I'll post it off to you, and you can give it a go and leave a comment saying it worked for you or it didn't work for you. But either way, it's a cheap fix if it's a failing stator. All right, well, video over. Problem fixed for me anyway. See you later.